can work together to improve your community's walkability.
Okay, so that is basically what is urban planning. So today we're going to discuss in depth about what is the videos talking about. Okay, so first, the introduction and the definition of urban. So before we further discuss about the theories about the issues and problems in urban planning, so you need to understand first the definitions of urban planning. So when you, I think when you guys, what do you think you see the pictures on the left? I think it's on the left, right? So what do you think when you see the above picture comparing to the below? What do you think? Do you think that which one is more urbanized? Which one is more urban? And someone
below one.
The below one.
Yes.
So all of you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
So because of what? So that is I think that is the common answer and common perception when we talk about urban, when we talk about urbanization. So we always think that urban areas, urbanization is something looks like the below picture, right? But so today I want to change that perception. What is urban, and what is the definition? What is the character of an urban area? So an urban area is characterized by higher population density. So it is actually the first one. Most of countries in the world, they are when we talk about urban area, we are talking about the population density first. Like it doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter where is the location. So if you can see the first picture, it looks like it's somewhere around. It is maybe it's not really in a big or metropolitan city. It's maybe in the country, maybe on the countryside, maybe on the suburbs, or maybe this is at a tourism or destination, or maybe this is an historical places. The first picture, but if the population density is higher and it meet the requirement of the definition of urban area, it is an urban area. And if you look at the picture, I think the first picture is quite dense. So there are lots of you can see buildings, the built area, there are vast human features. So that is so again, let me read again the characteristic of urban area. So it is characterized by higher population density and vast human features. So when we talk about vast human features, for example, like the infrastructure of built environment. So you can see that there are lots of building there. There are maybe schools, offices, hospitals. So lots of human features. Temples or a church or something like that. So that is human features in comparison to areas surrounding it. So when you want to compare urban and the other areas surrounding it, so you have to compare it between the population density and the vast human features. So if the area is urban and then the other area is not urban. So when it is not urban, so urban areas, maybe cities, towns, even small towns, if the population reach a certain number of urban area, so it is an urban. It is an urban area that we need if we want to develop, or if we want to do some development on that area. We need to think about the future development of an urban area, meaning that people will migrate. So that is the thing that you need to understand. it is not only urban area is not only on big cities like KL, JB. No, it is not. Urban area is not. We are not talking about big cities and specific location. We're talking about urban areas, maybe cities, maybe towns, maybe conurbations or suburbs. But the term is not commonly extended to rural settlements, such as villages. So the only thing that in urban planning, there are two teams. There are two separate entities, urban and rural. That's it. So we have when we have urban. So what comprise in urban area? What comprise in urban? So urban area, they can be cities, they can be town, they can be small town, but we have to look at the population density and the human features, the built environment, the infrastructure of built environment there. So if it is met the requirement, then it is an urban area. But if it's not, then it is a rural area. So the rural settlements, some like villages, like small, like maybe a small town that is not reached a certain population number, then it is an we consider it as a rural, meaning that it is a, maybe we call it, maybe in other places they call it countryside, villages. So that is in urban planning. There are two types: urban and rural. Last time when I studied urban planning, we used the term town and country planning. So the course for the bachelor called bachelor in town and country planning. So town and country. So urban and rural. So there are only two entities. Okay, so 101 countries use minimum population threshold. So maybe you are wondering what are the population number that we can consider an urban area. So 101 countries use minimum population threshold as a means of identifying settlements as urban, either as sole criteria or together with others. So there are maybe no, there are a lot of countries. The character of urban area is characterized by population density alone, meaning that they don't have other criteria. But in some other countries, we use human features, for example, infrastructure of built environment, hospital. So the vast human features also one of the criteria on top of the population density. But some of the countries, they are only using the population density. The population density reach that certain number, then it is considered as urban area. So the most frequently used threshold values are 2,000 inhabitants. So meaning that if the population is 2,000, just imagine 2,000 people. So it is considered already as an urban area. So that is used by 23 countries. So 23 countries in the world, the threshold for the population is 2,000. So meaning that if more than 2,000, then it is an urban area. And 5,000. So and 21 countries, they use 5,000 threshold. So meaning that so this is different. So the characteristic, the requirement is different from country to country. But this is basically the general requirement criteria. So there are others 5,000. The average of all these threshold was just under 5,000 inhabitants. So the average for all of the countries over the world, they are using this below 5,000 and below. So if it reach that number, then it is considered as urban area. I know it may strike you how low these figures are. So the most frequently used minimum population, that 2,000 people could easily be accommodated within a single large office building, right? So a single large office building in KL can accommodate 2,000 staff. So just imagine that's already urban area in some countries, especially the countries, in developed European countries where they very restrict their development of their cities. They have a very strict regulation on the development of their cities because most of the cities are very historical, and then they need to take care of that. Okay, this data is from the World Bank. So what about Malaysia? So what are the thresholds for Malaysia? So the Malaysian definition of urban, gazetted areas. What I'm referring here as in Plan Malaysia, that when they say gazetted areas, what they are referring here is the gazetted area as a city, as a town. For example, Shah Alam. Shah Alam is already gazetted as a Bandar Shah Alam, meaning it is already an urban. Petaling Jaya. Petaling Jaya is already already gazetted. We know that this is a place that is already gazetted as an urban, as a city. So that is what they are referring to, gazetted areas here. Because in other subjects, when you talk about gazetted areas, protected areas, something like marine protected areas, the Taman Negara, they are also gazetted areas. But here when you're talking about urban planning, so the gazetted areas that we are referring here is the gazetted areas that is already gazetted as a city, as a metropolitan areas like KL, Shah Alam. So gazetted areas with their adjoining built-up areas, which had a combined population of 10,000. So in Malaysia, we use 10,000, meaning that we are still encouraging our city to develop. So 10,000 or more, or the spatial development area that can be identified, which at least had a population of 10,000, with at least 60% of population aged 15 years and above, and were involved in non-agricultural activities. So this is the Malaysian definition. So we have quite a few character here. So the urban area must, the population must be 10,000 and above, and then we also identified that 60% of the population age 15 years and above. So we don't count children. I don't know why. So I don't see the rationale there why we don't count the children. We have to count because the children also the users of the urban area. They go to school, they go to they go to parks, but I'm not sure why we only count age 15 years and above. And I think that is not fair. And were involved in non-agricultural activities. So this is our definition in Malaysia. So non-agricultural activities, because Malaysia used to be an agricultural-based country, meaning our export, our economic is more depending on agriculture. So that is why when we want to differentiate between urban and rural, we want the urban area to be non-agricultural activities. Okay, so that is the definition in Malaysia. So built-up areas meaning all the schools, residential, commercial, at least again 50% of the population and engaged in council. And then spatial development areas, it's the same definition, same requirement with the gazetted areas. Spatial development areas, in urban setting, when we talk about spatial development areas, for example, Cyberjaya. Cyberjaya, we call it, we can consider it as a special development area because Cyberjaya is developed to become a global technology hub. So it is special development area. And then Putrajaya. Putrajaya is also a special development area because we want Putrajaya to become the administrative center. So that is a special development area. And then another another thing, for example, but Puncak Alam, Bandar Puncak Alam. So Puncak, if you know, Puncak Alam near Shah Alam, it is also considered as a special development areas because Puncak Alam was developed to cater the UITM second campus in Shah Alam. So they developed Puncak Alam to become that kind of maybe most of the what building or the economic or the activities that is on education is on because of that UITM. So that is also Bandar Puncak Alam is also maybe we can consider it as a special development area. So so like Bandar Puncak Alam, the contiguous it is they were contiguous to Bandar Shah Alam, sempadan sebelah menyebelah. So both if they can if both of this place if the population can combine is 10,000 and more, so it is already considered as an urban area. Although Puncak Alam, okay, if you go to Bandar Puncak Alam, if you're familiar with Bandar Puncak Alam, it doesn't look like an urban area because it is quite isolated from Shah Alam, right? But if we combine it, so that is the definition here. A special gazetted areas with the adjoining built-up areas which had combined population or more, or the special development area that can be identified. So the gazetted areas is Shah Alam, Bandar Shah Alam. And then the contiguous to the gazetted area is this Puncak Alam. It is a special development area. So it is if we combine Puncak Alam and Shah Alam, they are an urban area. So we can consider it as an urban area. So when we want to plan, when we want to develop that area, so we have to use that urban planning method. Okay, because the activities there is not agricultural activities. That is why you need to refer to the definition. So next studio, usually in third year, your final studio is on urban studio. Similarly, in Master of Architecture, there is one urban studio. So when we try to find the site for this urban studio, sometimes they argue because most of some architects or some people, they think urban area is an area like KL, like PJ, like Shah Alam, JB, Georgetown. So that is the urban area. But if you look at the definition, if we understand the definition, so urban area can be anything that met this requirement. 10,000, 60% information is 15 years and above, and involved in non-agricultural activities. Okay. And then when you understand the definition of urban, so now you have to understand definition of region. So that is the term. These are all the terms that is common in urban planning, urban and rural planning. So definition of region. So I think you must be familiar with the regional plan or regional economic sector. When we talk about ECER, have you heard ECER, East Coast Economic Region? It was, I think, in 2008. Malaysian set up this economic region based on region, East Coast Economic Region, ECER. So it is consists of Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang economic region, and then we have the Sarawak corridor economic for renewable and energy. So they call it SCORE. and then we have Sabah Development Corridor (SDC), and we have NCER, Northern Economic NCER, Northern Corridor of Economic Region. So NCER is northern, consists of Penang, Perlis, Kedah, and Perak, and some part of Perak. So that is region. So when we plan, when they decided to set up this economic region, development region in Sabah, Sarawak, Iskandar, Malaysia, in the south of Malaysia, we have Iskandar, Malaysia. So when we want to come up with that economic region, so we need to understand what is region, what is regional. So on the basis of the elemental factor of space, so a region is a geographic or area unit with certain limits and bounds. So the unit may consist of few villages. So when we talk about region, it the space or the limits is quite is bigger than state, than urban, than town. So regional, like I said, the Northern Corridor. So it consists of few states. So the unit may consist of few villages or even a number of countries. So even a number of countries. So for example, the Balkan countries. The Balkan countries, we call it the Balkan because it is the region there, the Balkan region, because of they share a similar characteristic of geographical area. So that is the region of the Balkan countries. There is a certain number of countries in the Balkan region. So a region may therefore be thought of as an area or spatial organization of varying dimensions. So there are lots of dimensions to define region. So any portion of Earth's surface where physical conditions are homogeneous can be considered as a region in geographic sense, meaning the homogeneity, meaning that if maybe the Southeast Asia region. So the Southeast Asia region, what are the homogeneity that we share? What is the similarity? The homogeneous. There are one thing that we are homogeneous. Southeast Asia, the climate, right? The weather. So we can call it South Asia region. So if that's why when we have ASEAN. So we have ASEAN, right? ASEAN. So in ASEAN, we try to work with all these ASEAN countries because we share that homogeneity. In terms, the first one is of course the weather. We are all in tropical countries, and then most of our activities, economic activities, are almost the same, but it depends on how developed your country. So ranging from a single feature region to compare depending on the criteria used for delineation. So how do you define that border? So that is on regional. So in practice, a prefix is added to highlight the attributes on which the region has been defined. For example, agriculture region, resource region, city region, and planning region. So again, this is what I mentioned just now. So agricultural region. So for example, in maybe last time, Perlis and Kedah, we can call it the Northern Agricultural Region because they have the similar agricultural activities, which is the paddy field, the rice production in the northern region. So that is how they combine this area and call it a region or regional area. So why we need this region? Why we need to, because it is to facilitate development. So meaning that we need cooperation from various states, various stakeholders, so that we can use our similarity as a strength, to grow together. So that is the reason why we always want to combine some areas as a region. Okay. The next. Okay, when you look at this area, what I intentionally choose this area, this picture, because I know most of you are very romantic who wants to live in such place. So when you look at this picture, what do you think of this area? Is this rural? What is this?
Rural.
Iskandar cakap rural.
Yeah.
Okay. Kira setuju semua. So this is rural. This is rural that you want to live. That most of you want to live here. Right? And this is yeah. This is also rural. So what are the difference? Can you see the difference between this rural and this rural? So this rural is the rural areas, rural settlements in Switzerland. And this is the rural areas in Sarawak. So that is a very, very big gap when we talk about developed countries. So how we want, because we are too focusing on our urban areas, we are too focusing on KL, on so when we talk about when you look at KL, when you look at all the metropolitan or the neighboring cities, towns in KL, most of us will feel like we are living in quite not bad for a developing countries. So that is what we thought. But if you look at our rural areas, if you go to Sabah, if you go to Sarawak, if you go to the remote rural areas in the East Coast, in the northern regions, so you can find this rural settlement everywhere. It's easier for you to find this. It is everywhere. So when I did my my fieldwork for my PhD in Sabah, when I go there for 3 months, I feel like I'm not in Malaysia. That's the feeling. The feeling is that it feels like you are going to somewhere, some other countries. It is so unbelievable. If you live there for 3 months, it is so unbelievable because it is not because of because you feel sympathy because you are from the place you live is very very well developed, and then with lots of facilities and infrastructures, and then when you go to this kind of places, then you feel devastating to see this is Malaysia. So you need to open your eyes when later on when you graduated, when you want to work. So please, that's why I said last time, be a responsible designer, responsible architect. So what we want to contribute to our society. Okay, so definition of rural. So a rural area or countryside is a geographic area that is located outside towns and cities. So encompassing all population, housing, and territory not included within an urban area. So it's very easy to define rural. Whatever is not urban is considered rural. So that is the uh, very it's very easy because in planning in town and country planning, urban and rural planning, so we only have these two. So so whatever is not urban is considered rural, but usually it is on overseas they call it countryside. Some other place they call it countryside. So typical rural areas have a low population density. So again, we look at the population density and small settlements. So agricultural areas are commonly rural. So in Malaysia, we use that as a defining terms, and as other types of areas such as forests. Different countries have varying definitions of rural for statistical and administrative purposes. Different countries have different definitions of rural areas for statistical and administrative purpose. So meaning that especially in developed countries, in a very livable, when we talk about livable, I don't want to call it developed countries because some place in America, in the US are not really livable. So I don't want to call it developed countries because, but I want to call it, what I want to refer here is most of the livable countries, livable cities in the world. They use sometimes they use a different definitions of rural because of statistical and administrative purpose. Okay, for example, I give you for an example. I think it is in Switzerland. It is in Europe, one of the European countries. They define rural based on the distance between the neighborhood, the settlement, and the healthcare provider. So that is very, I think that is very, when you have that kind of government, meaning that the government are very, they give prioritize on your health, on the people's health, especially in the rural area where the elderly are the main inhabitants, right? So they give this definition, the distance between the settlement and the healthcare provider. So if the distance are more than 10 kilometers to get to hospital or the nearest healthcare, then they consider it as rural. So when they consider it as rural, so they need to provide a healthcare provider in that area. So that is how good and how sensitive the government is. So we need the definition is based on the country's priority, the government priorities. For example, like I said here, definitions are based on statistical and administrative purpose. So how they want to govern, how they want to administer their countries, their place, their cities. So that is the varying definitions among countries. And then Malaysian definition of rural areas. So again, because we define urban areas as to have 10,000 and more population. So areas other than urban areas consists of all types of village settlements, towns and other small settlements with less than 10,000 inhabitants, characterized by agriculture and rich in natural resources. So these are the definitions of Malaysian rural areas. Okay, I think there is time now that it is time now that we develop our rural areas with care, because we don't want to destroy the natural resources or whatever, but we need to develop in terms of the economic activity, so that we want to control migration, and then we want to have a good link between urban and rural. So if we didn't control the migration from rural to urban, then we might see urban sprawl. So when we have urban sprawl, and then we have squatters, and then we have pollution, and it really gives bad impacts to the environment, to the climate change. That is the negative impacts of urban sprawl. That is why now it is time for us to really not only focusing on urban areas, but we need to develop our rural areas. So if we just imagine if we can develop our rural areas just like, you know, the Switzerland urban rural areas. So I think that most of us wouldn't want to migrate to urban areas, right? We might just stay in our village to, you know, to work, to live, and to have a very good life. Okay, so now we can move to introduction to planning. Okay, so that so those are the terms that you need to, that we already discussed. So now introduction to planning. So what is planning? In Malay we call it perancangan. So urban planning, perancangan bandar. Rural planning, perancangan luar bandar. And then we have regional planning, perancangan wilayah. So what is planning? So marriage between the people and the surrounding environment. So like the videos that we watched earlier. So they say that urban planning is a marriage between the people and the surrounding environment. So we have to think like that. It is a marriage, meaning that when you want to choose your environment, you need to choose wisely. If you want to develop, if you want to design your environment, meaning just think like you are designing a family. So you need to do it very carefully and responsibly. Okay. Yeah, all the daily activities of humans beings are carried out on land. So proper organization of these activities. So this organization of all the activities that that people carry out on land, we call it planning. So will help the human being in leading a richer and fuller life in livable surroundings or environment. So planning means the scientific, aesthetic, and orderly disposition of land, resources, facilities, services, with a view to securing the physical, economic, and social efficiency, health and well-being in urban and rural communities. But I would want to add here another. I think this is the common, the basic definition. Scientific, aesthetic, and orderly disposition of land, resources, and whatever, with a view to securing physical, economic, social, environmental, and institutional. So I would want, if you're asking me, beside these three, physical, economic, and social efficiency, what are the other? And sometimes in sustainable development, there are also outline three: economic, environmental, and physical, right? Here they talk about physical, economic, and social, but I would want to add environment here. I want to add environmental and institutional. Environmental, of course, because we are talking about climate change right now. We are talking about, because climate change, it can destroy your cities. KL will be gone if you don't act now. You can see, if you can see that the flash flood, the first within few months, there are flash floods. If we don't act now, so in terms of environmentally efficiency, then I think it will cost our country a lot of money. So and institutional. When we talk about institutional, what is institutional, Dr. Lim? So institutional, when we talk about good governance. Good governance. So meaning that we want people who lead the local authorities, who lead the countries, they have this concern on physical, economic, social, environmental efficiency on urban planning and the impact towards the well-being of urban and rural communities. So that is institutional. When we talk institutional, all these political organizations, they are under that institutional. If we don't have a good organization, if we don't have a good governance, good government, our politics is unstable, then it is very hard to move forward. And then urban planning is the process of developing and designing urban areas. The first two paragraph is on planning. So what are planning? And then the third one is on urban planning. So when you have this planning, when you talk about the planning, to achieve the well-being of urban and rural communities, but urban planning is the process of developing and designing urban areas. So just we add on the urban term. So encompassed in that process is the use of open land, air, water, and the built environment, including buildings, transportation, economic and social functions. So typically used as part of larger city plan. An urban plan should tie back to an organization's mission and vision statement. So when you talk about organization mission here, meaning in Malaysia, most of our development plan, city plan, urban plan are developed by local authorities. We always call them PBT, Pihak Berkuasa Tempatan. So that is our local authorities. So PBT is the Majlis Perbandaran, Majlis Daerah, DBKL City Hall, Majlis Bandaraya. So that is all our organization. So it should tie back to an organization mission and vision statement. So this local authority, they know their area better. So when they know their area better, so they should develop a plan that is that can tie back to their missions and vision. So every PBT or every local authority, they have different mission and vision because their areas are different in terms of economic activities. So when we talk about urban planning, we are not only talking on the physical development, physical planning or physical build up areas, but we are also talking about social functions and economic. So when you talk about social functions like public spaces, so that is how urban design emerged. So urban design emerged when people from planning and architecture mostly. So they created urban design because of this. They want to create a city that met the social function for most of the public spaces, especially the walkability. So that are all under urban design and economic. So these are the most important thing when you talk about economic. It's not only on the economies. So we have the urban planning. They need to work together closely with the economies. Because once you want to develop, for example, you are given an empty pieces of land, so you want to develop that area. So you need to know what kind of activities or how do you want to zone that area. So for these economies, they only knows about the economic theory. And the planning, they need to know what kind of economic activities that will take place in that area. So they need to work together. That is why I will talk about it later. So that is why it is very important that planning should include all of this: transportation, economic activities, social function, and so on. Okay, so now we're moving to types of urban planning. In today's lecture, I will cover like seven types of urban planning. So what are the types that you might uh, meet or find in the future? So first is strategic urban planning. So this strategic urban planning, this is a very general term that maybe you can find it if you go to US, you go to UK, you get to the other European or Asia Pacific region. So this strategic urban planning, it is a general term. So strategic urban planning focuses on setting high level goals and determining desired areas of growth for a city or metropolitan area. So the result of the planning process is a strategic plan. So the high level goal, so meaning the at the highest level. So that is the strategic urban planning. So also called the development plan, core strategy, or comprehensive plan. In Malaysia, we call it development plan. So the strategic urban planning is the general term. So in Malaysia, we call it development plan pembangunan. So I think if you ever go to local authorities to ask for their master plan, then you will know that we have development plan that called structure plan and local plan, plan struktur and plan tempatan. So these are, and at the federal level, we have national physical plan, plan physical negara. So these are all development plans. So in Malaysia, our strategic urban planning produce development plan. We call it development plan. So the strategic plans goal may include easing transportation throughout the city, creating more community spaces, improving citizens' quality of life, encouraging people to visit or move to the city. So that is the strategic urban planning. So in Malaysia, our development plan, so we have at the federal level, we have national physical plan. That is the highest level. And then at the state level, we have structure plan. That is second highest level. And then at the local authority, we have local plan. So all these local authority, they must come up with the local plan. So national physical plan, structure plan, and local plan. So local plan will refer to the structure plan. Structure plan will refer to the national physical plan. So that is setting up the high level goals. Okay. And all of this must be they must be referring to each other. What are our missions? What are the country's mission? And then we have to follow through. But at the local level, they have to come up with a very detailed local plan because they know their area better. So the detailed local plan is on. The detailed plan is on the local plan. So these are strategic urban planning. And then we have second, land use planning. I think if you have started the urban project, then you will be familiarized with this term, land use planning. Perancangan guna tanah. If you go to PBT in Malaysia, you will commonly hear this guna tanah. So that is land use. What are the land use for that area? So this is very important. So land use planning largely concerns legislation and policy. So this is where legislation, policy, all the laws, you can find it here in land use planning. Adopting planning instruments like governmental statutes, regulation, rules, codes, policies to influence land use. On a broad level, these planning instruments deal with the type, location, and amount of land needed to carry out different functions of the city. So they also serve to zone or reserve land for certain purposes, such as residential. So land use planning guna tanah. So usually we have this residential zoning. So for buildings like apartment, home, single family residences, condominiums, neighborhood area. And then we have commercial for buildings like retail shops and office buildings. And then industrial for structures like manufacturing plants and warehouses, factory, so that industrial zoning. So the land use there is for industrial. And then municipal, municipality is some structures like police station, courthouses, um, schools and hospital, maybe they are under services. So these are the certain purposes of zoning in land use planning. So why I said that the regulations, rules and laws are mostly under this, because this is where you need to be careful when you want to develop this area, the zoning area. If the area is zoning as residential, then let's say you want to design a factory or maybe what do you call a school, play schools. You need to be very careful. You need to ask permission. You need to change the status, or else if someone sue you, then I think you will need to go to court, because this is where community need to participate. We need to give a very good participatory activities in land use planning. Whenever the local authorities come up with a new zoning, they need to give access access to information to the community in the area, so that they know that their area is zoned as residential, commercial, industrial, for example. So this is very, very important. This is if you work later, if you work with PBT or firm, then you will find this kind of issues and problems when they want to develop, and then you cannot proceed with the development, with the design, with the need, because of this, because of the zoning, land use planning. So this is very important for all the stakeholders, including the community. Okay, and then number 3 is master planning. So I think this one pun, kalau ni, I think this studio, I think you already started with your master plan kan? Dapat master plan tak? Oh, I miss the urban the final studio, that year final studio, where they come up with this master plan. They usually will come up with a big master plan and put it in the studio. So this master planning is typically used for greenfield development project or buildings on undeveloped land. Instead of modifying pre-existing structures or spaces, you are starting from scratch. So that is why you need master plan. So you have this empty piece of land. It is undeveloped land. So you are starting from scratch. So that is why you need master plan. Other term that we use is greenfield development. Pernah dengar tak? Have you ever heard brownfield development? Brownfield area. If you familiar with this urban punya ni development, later on maybe you dah kerja in firm, so dapat project semua in KL. So I think most of KL there are lots of brownfield area. But for master planning, greenfield development project, it's an undeveloped land. You're starting from scratch. Brownfield areas is it's an abandoned land, usually an abandoned land. Maybe they are from abandoned factory. They used to, maybe the some they are abandoned because of maybe pollution or something like that. That is a brownfield area. So now we are moving towards to redevelop brownfield areas just to deal with urban sprawl, because we don't want the sprawl in our urban areas. So how do we one of the method that we want to, one of the steps that we want to control the urban sprawl is by redeveloping the brownfield area. So we need to, we need to work with the environmentalists and to redevelop the brownfield area. But for master planning, we call it greenfield development project because they are starting from scratch. So this type of urban planning envisions a future state for a human space. So this is where you need to, when you're given a space, that you need to envision what kind of what will happen in the future, in the 10, 20 years from now. What do you want this place to become? So urban planners must consider the required zoning. So from the land use planning just now, so they have to consider that, and infrastructure. So infrastructure is concept number 7. That is the part number 7 that I will discuss later. To make the project possible, such as residential and commercial land, transportation considerations, the road locations, etc. So they must also plan the location of urban amenities such as community facilities, schools, parks, and the like. So the master planning, when you want to develop, these are all the types of planning that you need to go hand in hand. So when you want to create your master plan, then you have to look back on the zoning, on the land use plan. Then you have to refer to the infrastructure plan. So that is quite a tedious work, but it is for the benefits of community. And then number 4, urban revitalization. So this is in contrast to master planning. So the brownfield area that I mentioned just now is usually under urban revitalization. So we want to revitalize that area. So one of the steps to control urban sprawl is through urban revitalization. So sometimes we use we hear the term rejuvenation, urban revitalization, urban rejuvenation. So there are lots of terms that have been used, but it is the objective is the same. Is to renew, to give a new breath, to refresh, to revitalize the urban areas. So in contrast to master planning, urban revitalization focuses on improving areas that are in a state of decline. So the exact definitions of a declining area will differ from city to city. For example, areas that have a troubling number of failing businesses or a stagnant or decreasing population growth. So the improvement tactics by city leaders used for revitalization will depend on the root cause of the decline. So why the city is declining? So we need to know why. And then when we want to revitalize that area, we have to tackle that issue first. So it may include things like repairing roads, developing new infrastructure, cleaning up pollution, and adding to parks and other public spaces, etc. So usually when we talk about urban revitalization, urban rejuvenation, etc. So we need urban design. This is where urban design is very important. So when we talk about urban design, we need the planners and architects. So they are mostly the urban designers. They are from planning and architecture background. So this is where because sometimes when we want to revitalize the area, we don't really need to build a huge development. Sometimes when we want to revitalize a place, like the urban design intervention that you did for your studio project. So just adding to parks and other public spaces, and when you just improve the public spaces, you just improve the roads, the walking the walkabilities, then you can revitalize the areas. So that is very the step is very simple, but I don't know why it is very hard for our our local authority whatsoever to implement that kind of walking friendly, pedestrian friendly cities, more shadings, and comparing to building more roads, paveways, more roads and parking that encourage people to use what individual vehicles compared to where they can walk, if they provide enough pocket parks in the cities, public space, and then nice shading. So that is urban design, that is urban revitalization. And then next we go to economic development. So here one of the types of urban planning is on economic development. So this is where I mentioned just now. When you talk about urban planning, it's not only on physical. It's not on physical like you saw in this picture. It's not only on building, but it's on economic. What kind of district? For example, in New York, there are a finance district. So they zone this New York City based on district. So the finance district is where the Wall Street the Wall Street is. So Wall Street, all these banks, international banks, it is on the finance district. So that is why that I said, as a planner, as an urban planning, or as a designer, when you want to, as an urban designer, you need to know about economic as well. You need to study economy. What kind of economic activities that is really suitable for this community, for example. So economic development is about identifying areas of growth to foster greater financial prosperity within the city, specifically by enticing companies to build or move offices there. So that is how. So you need to plan. You need to foresee what kind of activities, what kind of needs, so that when you want to build, if you want to plan, you know who are going to use that space, who are going to move there. So subsequently, those companies then hire local talent and drive commuter traffic to the new office. So more workers dining at local restaurants for lunch, getting gas at nearby stations, and stopping by local grocery stores on the way home will boost visibility and spend in the area. So that is in terms of economic development. So when you want to, that is how you plan, that is how you design. So when you study, when you do your final studio next semester, this is how you do your analysis. When you do your urban analysis, okay, when you want to design, even though you are designing as one building, but because in the urban area you need to analyze within 2-kilometer radius. So you need to know what kind of activities surrounding your building. So what kind of activities that your building will offer to complement the other activities, and or maybe to there is not enough, something is lacking, so you want to provide that in your building. So that is how urban planning, urban design works. So in economic development, so mostly this is how they do it. You want people to use all these local restaurant, and then when people are there, when people work there, when people come there to work, or when people stay there to live, so that the local restaurants, the local grocery stores can try. So that is how you boost our visibility and vitality of the area. And economic development plan ni, it is very important as well. If you kalau in Malaysia, if you ever heard economic planning unit, EPU, economic planning unit, the EPU, which is located under the Prime Minister's office, is the Jabatan Perdana Menteri. Ministry, the minister is I think Dato Mustafa Muhammad. So he is the minister at the Prime Minister office under economic, in bracket economic. So that is the different from the Ministry of Finance. So we have a Ministry of Finance, so we have a Ministry of the Finance. So these are all the finance, economists, or these economic experts. But and then we have another economic planning unit under the Prime Minister office. This is where they develop the Rancangan Malaysia plan, the Malaysian Rancangan Malaysia plan lah, the fifth year Malaysian plan. So we usually come up with an RMK 5, RMK 6 every 5 years, right? So if you know that, so every 5 years we come up with a RMK, Malaysia planning Malaysian 5th year plan. So this the EPU is the one doing the RMK, but all of the under the RMK, especially in terms of built environment, in terms of development, they have to work with this Plan Malaysia. So they have to work with all these designers, urban designers, because that is where they can contribute in terms of boosting the economic of the country. So we have the RMK, and then we have this national physical plan, and then all of this are working under that. The economic planning unit is is contributing to that plan. Okay. So that is why they need to work hand in hand, to work together with Plan Malaysia, and all these urban designers. Okay, number 6, we have environmental planning. This is very important as well. So in environmental planning, is a type of strategic development that emphasize sustainability. So this is where, when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about planning for the future generation, so this is where it the importance can be seen. So considerations for this type of urban planning include air pollution, noise pollution, wetlands, habitats of endangered species, flood zone susceptibility, coastal zone erosion, along with host or other environmental factors, dealing with the relationship between natural and human system. So these are all environmental planning. So in planning, we have, if you look at if you can see the picture there, environmental impact assessment, the first one, at the bulldozer one. So we have environmental impact assessment, EIA. So EIA is very important before we proceed with development, especially if the development is at the sensitive area, forest, coastal areas. So it is compulsory for them to conduct the environmental impact assessment. But we always see that if you heard the news recently, the tanah runtuh tu, landslide that killed few people near their houses. The houses are being buried under the landslide. So if we see that kind of landslide, and then the tragedy of Highland Tower, I think that was I'm not sure if you were born already. I think you're not born yet. The Highland Tower tragedy in Ulu Klang, where all this condominium collapsed. So because the area is very sensitive, and people are talking, the tragedy, you know, the incident of landslide, actually it portray our weaknesses, the weakness in our um, system, in our local authorities, in our system, whereby if we conduct a very thorough environmental impact assessment, then we know what we can foresee, we can expect what will happen if we conduct a very thorough environmental impact assessment. And there are some, you know, when the EIA is not, the report in the EIA said that you cannot proceed with the development because it's not safe, but still there are lots of development is being carried out anyway. That is why this is where the loopholes in our system. It's not only in Malaysia, I think it's everywhere in the world, because this is where people make money in, you know, developers and something like that. So that is why I told you guys, responsibility is the price of greatness. If you don't feel responsible, so if you think that money, having a good life, having a good lifestyle is more important than this, then I think Malaysia will stuck there, will stuck here forever. So we want to have a thriving nation. So whereby we want to have that kind, every people is responsible and accountability, meaning that they are responsible for their act. So they are accountable. So that is the, in terms of environmental planning is very important, especially in KL pun. Recently, I wrote a newspaper article in Berita Harian. I wrote about the flash flood in KL, and I gave some suggestion on the, you know, on the mitigation step. So if you maybe I can share you the article. So it is more on when you look at that what happened in KL, it's actually on the, it is because of climate change. Climate change is one of the we cannot see, because climate change, you cannot see the change in the ozone, the change in our, but it is because of the climate change. And the climate change happened because of pollution, because of this, because of the thing that you see in the picture, and because of the lacking of this environmental planning and environmental impact assessment. So that is the among other things, the building certification. So in Malaysia, we have Malaysian Green Building. In Northern America, they have LEEDs. So these are all the building certification to encourage people to have more green, to greener lifestyle, save energies. Okay. And then number 7, we have infrastructure planning. So infrastructure planning deals with the fundamental facilities and systems that serve a city and its people. So, and how those facilities can support goals laid out in the strategic plan. So this type of urban planning covers public work infrastructures, such as water supply, sewage and electricity and telecommunications. So community infrastructures such as schools, hospitals and parks, and then safety and transportation such as roads, police and fire facilities. So I think if we have this very excellent infrastructure planning in Malaysia, I think most of us will want to live in Malaysia. So the reason why we want to go to live somewhere else, most of that because I was there in Canada for 4.5 years. I have a very I love the way I live there. I a very good, very humble lifestyle. I don't have cars. I can go everywhere by bus, by by public transport, but walking, especially walking. So because of that, we have a good memories because of that, that we want to stay there. We don't want to go back. So that is actually, if we have this infrastructure planning, a very good infrastructure planning, a very comprehensive, and with you have beautiful parks, you have beautiful pedestrian walkways with enough shading, and then you have this all this under this infrastructure planning. I think most of us we want to stay in Malaysia, right? Because our families is here. So, but because of this lacking, that is why when we go out, when we go overseas, or when we visit our other countries, we feel like, wow, this is nice. When we just walk, when we took subways to go from point A to point B, and then we feel very convenient. So that is why when we come back, we compare it with what happened in Malaysia. We have to wait like 60 minutes, like 2 hours for the bus, and then that is the the challenges, the lacking. Oh, okay. Zikwan asked about the smart tunnel in KL. Yes, Zikwan. What do you mean by, how about the smart tunnel in KL?
Regarding to the flood, right? Because KL they got smart tunnel, but I'm wondering why other state they didn't do it. Maybe it's too expensive or what? Because I know the flood is one of the problem. The second thing that I feel frustrated in KL is the traffic jam there. Because
that's why the smart tunnel is a very good. That is sorry. Smart tunnel is very. That is one of a good effort by the previous government. I think it helps a lot. If we don't, I tell you, if we don't have that smart tunnel, KL will be gone. Already gone, I think. Because but it helps a lot. But the smart tunnel is only that length. So they need can you imagine the smart tunnel need to control the rainwater that is very the heavy rain that is not normal, unusual heavy rain. So they need to the smart tunnel cannot it's more on its carrying capacity. So it is beyond their limits. So that's why, because of this, because of when you talk about the traffic jam, because of that, because we are so depending on individual vehicles, and then we are so depending on even if we don't take even if we take public transport, we take taxis, we take Uber, we take Grab. All of these are considered as autonomous vehicle, although it's not individually owned, but it's autonomous vehicle. So we don't want that. We don't want that to be prevalent in our roads. We want public transportation, such as the trains, the transit. We want the transit oriented development. So if you can see in the picture here, so they have a very mobility hub concept, real time. When you talk about real time, why we don't want to take buses? Because of this, because we don't have a real time. We need to wait until 2 hours, and then if we want to go back, maybe it took about. That's why people choose to drive. That I think most of us we are facing the same problem. At the end, we choose our own car to go to KL because of this. So that is why they need to change this first. They need to change the infrastructure planning. For example, in KL, they need to provide more open space for water, for controlling unusual heavy rain. So that they need an open space. So they don't need. We don't have that anymore in KL. It is already what is called the pool. It's too compact. It is too compact. It is high density, but the institutional the services are not there. Too high density, but the services are not there. The one thing that we want to control urban sprawl, we want to create a high density place with all of everything is there. Services, community infrastructures, transportation, retail, all of these infrastructure are there, so that we can control urban sprawl. So the thing with urban sprawl, it impact our environment through pollution. When we have urban sprawl, so meaning that more greenhouse gases will be emitted in our udara, in the air. So that is why we want to control urban sprawl. Urban sprawl is one of the biggest contribution to the greenhouse gas emission, and that later on pollution, and then climate change. So that is why, that is what happening in KL recently. I think not only in KL, if you in earlier March, in Brisbane, Australia, the worst flood in 20 years, I think. The worst flash flood in 20 years. That is because of climate change. So we cannot run away from the climate change, but we can change our approach. So that is why in my article I said we have to act now. We cannot wait until because the governments and the people, we are losing billions. The government are losing billions during the flash flood recently in March, and before that in December. So just imagine, within 3 months we have 2 flash floods in KL. So we are losing billions of dollars. If you can see, the cars has been lots of banyak kerosakan. So that is why we need to, if you can spend billions on infrastructure, it's better. It should be. I think the people who are ruling the countries, the local authorities, or who are in power, they need to think of this. They need to spend more on infrastructure planning, on environmental planning, and on the sustainability, on this building the resilience, and then they can save more when they spend like hundreds of millions on this. They can save billions. Just imagine, you just lost billions for nothing. At least if you have billions to build this kind of places, livable cities, I think it is better for the community. But that's not happening. That is why that is very disappointing lah. And I understand your feeling. Ziquan.
Yeah,
Okay.
quite frustrating, because I used to jam 2 to 3 hours from Klang to
Yeah.
VJ, go and back one day. Even I pay toll also, I jam. So like,
Yeah,
bit-
that's why. Even you take bus as well, right? Even if you take public transport, so that is why they need to have this kind of a very strategic planning on environmental, on infrastructure planning in KL, because in KL you cannot, there is no more. I don't think they should build any more new development in KL. So in KL, what they want to do now is urban revitalization. They need to focusing more on the environmental and infrastructure aspect. Okay. Okay, now, last but not least, the characteristics of successful urban planning. So the first character is livable cities. So when you want to characterize a successful urban planning, how do you characterize that? So it's livable. So from based on our first meeting last week, so it seems like many of our cities are not livable because you want to live somewhere else. So livable places provide choices in housing, work, transport, and lifestyle opportunities, accessible services, integrated transport options that include walking and cycling. Public spaces are accessible, well-used and safe. So livable places are healthy places to live, and they have low levels of crime. So towards a livable city, so we encourage collaboration between stakeholders, using design as a transformative tool. So urban design is very, very important to create livable cities. So involving the community in placemaking. Again, placemaking is another term in urban design. Rejuvenating existing spaces, creating new destinations. So, you know where is this? The picture, the city here that I put here. You know where is this? Anybody know?
Australia or New York?
It's Australian neighbor. Is Auckland in New Zealand. Okay, why I put Auckland picture here? Because Auckland voted as the most livable cities last year. So last year, during COVID, again the economist EUI, economist unit intelligence, it is based in London. So they usually have come up with this livable cities rank every year. So last year, apparently Auckland is the most livable cities during COVID. So there is a certain contribution on how New Zealand control COVID in their countries. So we know that New Zealand is one of the most efficient in controlling COVID in the countries. And yet, yes, we can see that the Auckland is voted as the most livable city. So I think the community, the residents are very happy to live there. Number 2 is Osaka, and number 3 is Adelaide in Australia. So so that is on livable city, livable. So the characteristic, and another character is environmentally responsible. So environmentally responsible cities and towns recognize the role that landscape and natural environment play in making their urban areas great places to live and work, and they value the contribution they make to their identity, livability, and quality of life. So minimize adverse impacts on human health and natural and cultural systems, including quality and water quality, minimize waste production, energy and water use, maximize the efficiency of land use and infrastructure. So that is environmentally another characteristic of successful urban planning, environmentally responsible. If you go to a place, a city, and then you feel this city is quite environmentally responsible, then it is then it is one of the character of successful urban planning. Another one, the third one is opportunities. So what do you mean by opportunities? Meaning that the city, the urban areas, provide opportunities for young and old, people on low incomes, and people with disabilities. So it is for everyone. So for the United Nations UN Habitat tagline towards Sustainable Development Goals, their tagline for 2030 is inclusive cities for all. So so in line with that, cities for all, so opportunities is one of the character, meaning that you have you provide opportunities for everyone. The benefits of urban life are widely shared: access to jobs, affordable homes, services, and community facilities, inclusive societies that respect and celebrate diversity, and care for the disadvantaged, strong sense of community, and encourage people to participate in making decisions that affect them. Equitable, and everyone feels a sense of ownership, which is reflected in their safe and dynamic public spaces. How do you reflect this in the public spaces? How do you reflect everyone feels sense of ownership? Meaning that when you go to their public spaces, you can see people hanging around, people they are appreciating life, appreciating every part of their city. So that is why public spaces very, very important. The fourth one is distinctive identity. This I just outlined like 5 characteristics. You can find more if you read more on a successful urban planning. But this is the most important 5 most important characteristics. So the distinctive identity. So this is the place. The picture here is Osaka. Osaka is the second livable city in the world last year. So distinctive identity. I think they have this. I think when they're being assessed, so distinctive identity is you cannot run. You cannot throw this away from many Japan cities. So they have this distinctive identity that built on the unique strengths and characteristics of each place and the cultural identity. When you look at this, you know that when you look at their temple, their shrines, you know that they are in Japan. So it reflects heritage and culture in their built form, in the landscape, and in the way spaces are organized and used, reflect diverse ethnic mix. Recognizing and promoting a town's or city's identity encourages diversity of cultural expression through design that recognize distinctive use of space, form, and materials. So it fosters local pride, community participation, and confidence, stimulate innovation, creativity, and economic opportunities. So these are the distinctive identity that we are talking about. It's not only on local pride, community participation, but also stimulate innovation, creativity, and economic opportunity. So I think many Japan big cities have this kind of characters. They are very modern. They are very advanced in technology. They provide more economic opportunities, but we can see that they didn't forget the cultural expression, that their local pride. So that is one of the character. And last but not least, again, good governance. If you have all these beautiful, like Malaysia, actually our rural areas, we have a very, very good, very beautiful scenery of rural areas. We have a very beautiful islands, especially in Sabah, in parts of Semporna, and then we have a very beautiful rainforest. But this beautiful of nature, this beautiful is not enough if we don't have a good governance to govern that. So good governance, local governance is effective, efficient, and confident. Leaders are prepared to take risks to deliver the best outcomes, but priorities and trade-offs are met explicit, and the benefits and costs of decisions are understood. So decision makers think holistically and creatively. Holistic thinking, meaning that we think about every aspect, everything, every living and non-living thing. So that is holistic. And they learn from mistakes. So they work in partnership with business and other local communities to reach shared goals. So that is in terms of good governance. They have to be accountable, transparent, responsive, consensus-oriented, participatory, inclusive, following rule of law, that is responsibility, and efficient. So these are the traits of good governance. If you have a good governance, then you can provide a good livable or successful cities. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you for your interest in seeking knowledge. I'll see you next week, but don't go yet. I'll give you the link for the Google. But it's okay. You can fill in the Google form anytime later.